All right. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everybody. We are one shy of a quorum, so I can't call the meeting to order yet. However, I'm looking at the, and if I could have everyone's attention. Hello. All right, we're awaiting one for a quorum, but before I call the meeting to order, I'm looking at the sign-up sheet here, and we don't take comment on items that are not on the Finance and Executive Committee agenda. So these are additional. All right. So those of you who have come to talk about the in-state tuition resolution, now we're not going to be able to take those here today. You are invited to come to the full council, which will be the next time members of this body take that paper up. As you may know, it was voted on favorably, unanimously by the appropriate committee already. And then I will look at the rest of the subject matter items as they come up. And we're waiting on one more.
They're leaving.
HR, Commissioner Smith, is it possible you could go ahead with your presentation while we're awaiting a fourth?
I'm sorry?
Is it, yeah, good afternoon. Is it possible you could go ahead with your quarterly presentation while we're awaiting a fourth?
Absolutely.
Great.
Wait. Hey. Come on, man.
All right, and while we're awaiting for the Commissioner of Human Resources to give her quarterly report, I will call the meeting to order as we now have a quorum. I'm Howard Shook, the chairman of the committee. To my right is Vice Chair Alex Swan. Dustin Hillis is to my left, and Jason Winston is to his left. And so I will call the meeting to order and move adoption of the agenda. Second by Juan. If we're ready, let's open that vote on adoption of the agenda. The ayes have it, so ordered. I will move adoption, approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right. The minutes of the prior meeting have been adopted. Committee, we do have a number of people from the public who have signed up to speak. Is it your pleasure that we hear from them and then we'll get on with the regular agenda? Is that all right, Commissioner?
Yes. Are we going to proceed with the presentation or public comment first?
I think we need to
public comment?
move on to public comment and
Okay.
not keep folks
I can wait.
tied up here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm going to do the best I can with some of these names. Ms. Hare, speaking to 24R3132. Now? That sounds good? Thank you. Come on up.
So, I think good afternoon, I would say. As you guys know, I was thinking, I'm a native here, right? And so from my lived experience from the housing projects over 40 years ago, I can tell you without having central air, we could hear the wind blow through the cracks in our window pane in our apartment. To me now, being a homeowner myself, I can tell you that in the summer, I had to keep my children in one room, council member, because our heating bill would be so high. I can tell you that I had to make freeze pops to keep them cool in the summertime. I can tell you that I had outstanding appliances that made my utility bill extremely high, right? Why do I say this? I say this because there are people still to this day that have worse situation than I experienced now and 40 years ago. And with that, I think it's time for Atlanta to think outside the box and be creative. And I think it's time that you guys pass this clean energy fund. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Adrian Rice, followed by Akeem Williams, followed by Jeanette Gayer.
Thank you for having us. Adrienne Rice with Sustainable Georgia Futures. We are an environmental climate justice organization, and just like with Ms. Howe, we think that you should pass this clean energy fund. We are currently working with the city on the Weatherize ATL campaign, where we are canvassing in 11 of the highest energy burdens throughout Atlanta. And one of the things, we think that this is so great. With this pilot program, Weatherize ATL campaign, we were able to bring on 10 Canvas ambassadors that are from these communities. We were able to pay them a good wage with this campaign. We were able to provide childcare, food, and transportation. And only with funds like this would you be able to do something that is like this. And so, yeah, we're just strongly in support of it. We think that Atlanta needs to think outside of the box and move forward with initiatives such as this. Thank you.
Thank you. Akeem Williams.
Hey, how y'all doing today? I came down to speak on behalf of the Clean Energy Bill. You all need to pass that resolution, as has been already stated. That's something I do support. Growing up in this city, we have had a lot of issues as it relates to utility costs constantly going up. It seems like we never get a reduction in that. I am a young person. I stay inside the city, and one of the issues that I have is that my Georgia Power bill just a little time ago, less than a year ago, was around $89 for my one-bedroom apartment. Today is costing me up close to about $200 to stay in my one-bedroom apartment, and it is a new building that they did build within the last 2 years, and I'm just not understanding that. I would also like to speak to the fact that we're having some mobility issues on the west side as it relates to MARTA and picking up passengers. On route number 58, that bus is constantly having one bus driver for the duration of the entire day. And the bus driver that is coming to work is constantly being cussed out because we're like, where the other buses are. MARTA keeps saying they don't have enough drivers, they having staff issues. That's not an excuse. We need some plan to come up to get us across, especially when that other bus 50 that serviced Donnelly Hollowell is also being canceled, or we're not having adequate drivers. And the issue is not that they're staffing issues, it's also about communication. They aren't letting us know when these buses are being canceled, and it's affecting us getting home. I typically work the 3 to 11 shift. When I get off work, I only have about 45 minutes to make it home on MARTA because the last bus is typically around 12. It's no later than 12:30 for all of their routes. So how do we supposed to get home effective and efficient when Uber and Lyft rides are about $40 to $50? when they have concerts, give or take. No one addresses the surge issues in the city. Is outrageous, and when people like myself or other young people trying to make it to work is very hard. I would also like to speak about the capital improvements along Westlake Avenue that connects a wide variety of parks in our city, from Mosley Park all the way down to West Side Park. The sidewalks and the resurfacing needs to happen along Westlake Avenue, as we all know that is very bumpy from potholes being fixed, but nothing has ever been resurfaced. I would also like to bring up the fact that at Horntons, I believe I'm saying the correct street, whatever the parallel street, once you cross over DL Holloway from Westlake, the sidewalks just stops. However, we do have Bankhead Seafood opening up in just a little while. How can we make sure that we have economic improvements in my community? Because we do stay here and we do appreciate ATL DOT doing a traffic calming project, because we are walking more. We want to be able to live in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, and we have been joined by Ms. Keisha Shawn Waits. You are about 3 people from now. Jeanette Gayer.
Good afternoon, Council. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for having us today. My name is Jeanette Gayer. I'm the director of a nonprofit called Environment Georgia, also a resident of Ormwood Park, and have solar on my roof. And I'm happy to be here today to urge your support of the Energy Burden Fund. I have just a few quick remarks that starts with a little trip down memory lane, I guess. In 2019, Atlanta passed One Atlanta, which was a commitment to get, I believe, 20,000 affordable housing units in the city by 2026. They also passed a commitment to 100% clean energy, clean and renewable energy by 2035. Often, achieving those 2 goals do not go hand in hand. They don't happen at the same time, but I think there is a huge opportunity for those 2 things to happen together. Energy burden is when people are paying large percentages of their monthly income to just pay their electric bill, to keep the lights on, to keep the house cool, to keep it warm. In Atlanta, we have very high energy burden. The average medium low-income energy burden is 10%, a little over 10%. The national average, 3.5%. So we have a lot to do to fight this problem, and this fund solves that. Last year, for Georgia Power ratepayers, rates went up 4 times. That means energy bills are going up. And the only good news about that is that franchise fees will also go up, which allows us to fund this fund. So urge your support. Think this is a very important solution to both our affordable housing crisis in Atlanta, but also our climate crisis. Thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Sharonia Madhaven, forgive me if I butchered your name, followed by Kevin Menikaraj. Apologies there. And then our own Keisha Shawn Waits has signed up for public comment, which you needn't do in order to be recognized. But go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Sharanya Madhavan, you didn't butcher it. Currently a resident, a renter in Ormwood Park as well, NPUW District 1. I am here today to support the Clean Energy Fund as well, Resolution 24R3123. I currently work at GreenLink Analytics, a local nonprofit focusing on advancing a clean and equitable clean energy transition. We work a lot on clean energy and equity and the intersection of those across the U.S., but especially here in Atlanta. And with that, we work a lot on energy burdens, or the percentage of income that a household spends on their utility bills. When a household spends more than 6% of their income on their utility bills, they're considered highly energy burdened. And here in Atlanta, 100% of our highly energy burdened communities are predominantly Black. And Atlanta is also in the top 5 most energy burdened cities across the U.S. Energy burden drives a family to skip their meals and medications just to keep their lights on. Through our research, we've actually found that energy burden is highly linked to evictions, but also is a key driver of displacement here in our city. We've also found that energy burden is highly linked to health outcomes for our city, especially asthma rates. So I'm here to ask you to support this legislation, the Clean Energy Fund, because it'll not only alleviate energy burdens, but it'll also improve housing stability, housing equity, neighborhood stability, and allocate the millions of dollars that we need to move the needle on energy and housing equity in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Menakaraj.
Excuse me,
Yes, sir.
I forgot to put the resolution down that I was going to speak on.
Okay.
It's 24 R 3174. That's the Procurement Reform Task Force.
The 31, what, Mr. Roebling? 31 what?
3174.
Thank you.
I believe that's on page.
Yep, I got it. So noted. You're up after a couple more people.
Pardon?
You're up after a couple more people.
Okay, thank you.
Hey there, good afternoon to the council. Thank you. My name is Cav Monakraj, and I live in the District 5 portion of Ormwood Park. As my day job, I'm a data scientist for GreenLink Analytics. It's a small local nonprofit right here in Atlanta. And I focus on finding common sense solutions towards a more sustainable and equitable future for all Georgians. I'm here today in support of Resolution 24R 3123 and urge you to push forward in creating this immensely necessary energy burden fund. So by now you would have heard how poorly Atlanta ranks compared to other cities in both how high our energy burden is and how many households face this problem. And you would also know that the increasing electricity rates that are only expected to make these things worse. So it's clear that a clean energy fund has the ability to significantly improve where we stand on these. But there's something that's more important here. One thing that is conclusive in the data is that energy burdens and housing security are inextricably linked. As more of our neighbors have to make these tough choices on whether or not they can afford the energy to live in even the most basic ways, the data shows that they're more vulnerable to evictions, to foreclosures, and displacement that would otherwise be completely avoidable. I think we can all agree that there's a common sense path here that all Atlantans have a fair shot at living securely without the threat of high energy bills defining their lives. By moving forward with this energy burden fund, you would be signaling to our community that you are invested in Atlantans living safely and securely in their own homes. So I'm asking you to work with the mayor's office in support for this resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Keisha Shawn Waits.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to speak in my private capacity as a citizen of Atlanta. The Atlanta Victims Witness Program is significantly underfunded, and Brittany Glover's mother, who was a pedestrian that lost her life due to a hit-and-run fatality, needed support from this organization about a year ago at the time of her burial, in addition to the fact that her mother has come to Atlanta multiple times from Ohio and incurred fees for lodging as well as airline flights. And so as we approach the budget season, just wanted to ask and make a plea to this committee that we look at increasing the funding by $500,000. I'm happy to carry that legislation if anyone will support it, to ensure that she has the funding necessary to do the amazing work that she does. And Ms. Brittany Glover, Valerie Carey Handy's, the mother, will be here to speak to some of the fees and expenses that she has incurred since the loss of her daughter. Thank you.
Thank you. We've been joined by Marcy Collier Overstreet. Dana Holmes is up now, followed by Rodney Stevens, followed by Ken Roebling. Well, we don't do time yields in the committee. Sorry, that's just, we've never done that here. So they can use their own time if they'd like, but it just can't be donated. So I'm looking at Dana Holmes, Rodney Stevens, and Ken Roebling are next up.
The importance of funding organizations that would support Brittany's mother is very important. Her death was unlikely due to the traffic impedance in crossing Dunolly Hollowell, and it's extremely important that through organizations, the nonprofit that's supporting the families of individuals like Brittany's family, is important to continue to fund them. Thank you.
Thank you. Rodney Stevens?
I have nothing to say.
Thank you. Mr. Roebling?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ken Roebling, and I'm here to talk about 24R 3174, which is a procurement reform task force. Why is this necessary? Well, a year and a half ago, a resolution with many fake names and one real one, Rowhead Fox, was passed. This resolution was worth $48 million. I believe that money may be headed for corruptors. Since then, I have not seen such blatant attempt to steal public funds. Could it be that they have changed their tactics? It might be that the corruptors have changed to listing real companies with one fake company. The goal is still the same: reach into the city's treasury and help yourself. This task force can stop this blatant thievery by asking questions and identifying what the projects are and what they're for. So, I wholeheartedly support 24R 3174. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ruth Pimentel is up, followed by Matt Cox, followed by Valerie Handy.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Pimentel, and I'm here to speak in support of the community schoolyards legislation on today's docket. That's regarding Benteen Park and a few other locations. I'm the Community Schoolyards Program Manager at Trust for Public Land, which you may also know as TPL. TPL is a national organization that aims to connect everyone to the outdoors. In Atlanta, TPL has worked on all kinds of public parks and green spaces, from the Martin Luther King Jr. birth home to the Chattahoochee Riverlands to the Beltline. We're also proud that Councilmember Boone made a proclamation honoring the Community Schoolyards Initiative in 2022. Community schoolyards are outdoor spaces that offer schools a place for outdoor learning and play during the school day, and that offer neighbors a place for recreation and nature access when school is not in session. Community schoolyards can creatively increase access to green space and improve our mental, physical, and social health. Students, often elementary students, are the lead designers in creating these community schoolyards, and they create unique spaces that fit each neighborhood's needs. In partnership with Atlanta Public Schools, we have designed and built 6 of these community schoolyards, and 2 more will be complete by the end of next month. We are grateful to the City of Atlanta for providing public funding to support the design and construction of 4 new community schoolyards. Public funding, like in this legislation, is crucial to continuing the community schoolyards program, and it was a requirement of one of our private funders who committed $1 million to the project. The city's dollars will be matched 3-to-1 with contributions from APS and from those private funders. Thank you to the Department of Parks and Recreation and to the City of Atlanta for funding this program and for connecting more Atlantans to the outdoors. Thank you.
Matt Cox.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Dr. Matt Cox. I'm the CEO and founder of GreenLink Analytics. I live in Edgewood. I was the Data and Building Decarbonization Chair on the Clean Energy Advisory Board and currently sit on the city's J40 Commission. About a decade ago, I got to work with a few of you, Councilmember Wan and Councilmember Shook, to move the City of Atlanta from unranked on energy policy to 4th nationally when I was the city's energy manager. I'm here today to ask you to push forward significant legislation that would improve energy equity across this city, Resolution 24R3123. Energy burden, as you've heard, is the percent of income spent on utility bills. Atlanta has ranked as one of the top 10 most energy burdened cities since such rankings have existed. Recently, our utilities started a process to increase their rates by nearly 50% over a 4-year period, and they're currently engaging in further attempts to increase those rates. I've been involved in those proceedings for the last 8 years, including as an expert witness for the City of Atlanta in the 2019 rate case, and I would tell you that, in my professional opinion, those rates are going to continue to go up. This is critical because our research has shown that energy burden drives evictions and displacement in Atlanta. Unless we choose to do something, our affordable housing problem will also get worse at the same time. The good news is that we know what to do, and that's started by the legislation that's in front of you. In fact, the same energy system models used to produce Clean Energy Atlanta and Atlanta's Building Decarbonization Plan project that establishing the Clean Energy Fund at about $10 million per year would significantly reduce energy burdens across the city, serve to scale programs like the Weatherize Atlanta program you heard mentioned by Adrienne Rice earlier, that the Office of Sustainability is currently spearheading, and create about 5,000 employment opportunities, mostly for people in the building trades. I see that 94% of the council has co-sponsored this legislation, so I'm hopeful that any outstanding barriers to its passage can be quickly overcome. Asking you to work with the mayor's office and vote for 24R3123. Thank you.
Thank you. Valerie Handy, followed by Daphne Robinson.
Good afternoon. As you stated, my name is Valerie Handy Carey. I am the proud mother of Brittany Patrice Glover. This is a picture of Brittany. My beautiful, when I say beautiful, I'm talking about her spirit and who she was. Brittany came here following a dream, a job. She was killed September 19, 2022, attempting to cross the street at Donald Well Parkway. And at that time, we were looking for resources and none was available. I live in the state of Ohio. My daughter moved here for a job. So the expense of me having to travel here back and forth, thousands of dollars, and not only when you don't live in the state, I had to fly her body back to the state of Illinois where she was born. And so when there's a victim, we don't always look at the impact, the ripple effect that it has on a family. The fact that I had to take time off from my job, I used up all my time, all my sick time, vacation time. So nobody accounts for that. The counseling, when you do have insurance, you only get so many sessions that you can get with a counselor. So you can't box in grief and how people grieve. And so the way that my daughter died, left in the middle of the street, and still the person who took her life is still out there in the streets. So having to rationalize and deal with that on a daily basis, knowing that this person has the opportunity to kill again. And so I'm asking you as a committee to provide resources, the necessary resources for families like me, not only the ones that live here in Atlanta, but for those who are victims that come from out of town. You can't say that you have a victims advocate group and they don't have the resources to help the victims. So I'm saying, please, ma'am, please, sir, within your power, your authority, if you would provide the necessary resources for the community to get the help that they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just say that the timing is good here because this committee will soon take the lead in reviewing and reacting to the budget that we'll receive from the mayor's office. And so that'll set the stage for
and if I may add,
to make
Mr.
sure
Shook,
this is adequately funded.
There's some additional things like providing resources to be able to get representation, legal representation, maybe finding a private detective, whatever you need to be able to help solve your loved one's case. And so I'm still in that position. I still need the help. You know, I flew here last night to come here today, and then I have to fly back tonight. And so if there's another meeting, I have to fly again if I want to be present and honor my daughter's name. So I'm just asking if you guys would take that into consideration.
Understood, and thank you.
Thank you.
Daphne Robinson.
Good afternoon. My name is Daphne Robinson, and I'm here in support of Valerie. in representation of Brittany. And I can contest to the financial burden that it has been upon Valerie and her family for her flying back and forth, you know, to come and stand for her daughter. You know, I've been that support for her. And me having the resources of victim advocacy, you know, during the time that I lost my son, I know it's important, and it would have been important for her during the time that she had lost Brittany. So please, if you have those resources and you can offer those resources, please think about doing that and doing that so that, you know, another family doesn't have to go through or suffer, you know, the way that she has been, you know, suffering. She's come here numerous of times, and every time she leaves without answers about what has happened to Brittany. She don't know who mauled her daughter down on Donnelly Howe and Finley Avenue. So she's constantly coming back to advocate for her daughter and to get answers, and she needs those resources. So please think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three speakers are Andrea Jones, Costco Jones, and Ernest Rogers.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrea Young-Jones. I'm here supporting the Clean Energy Fund. I am a resident of South Fulton, but my mother is a resident of Atlanta, Georgia. I actually grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, so I am somewhat familiar with the energy burden issues and households that are impacted by high energy bills. One of the things that has worked in other states and other cities, as you all know, is weatherization projects. So it's very good for you all to have some type of projects or programs that support households and elderly households and families that are energy burdened and are low income, low wage workers that would be benefit from the types of programs that help families expand their energy use, as well as help families move into a clean energy type of system. The city of Georgia and the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia can be a leader in that aspect. I ask that you all consider this and move forth on it, and I ask that you all move as quickly as possible so that people will have the impact that is needed in order for them to grow and be healthy communities and families. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Costco Jones.
Good evening, Council. Costco Jones, a resident of Atlanta, Georgia, on the Board of Directors, Eco Action, former board member, Harambe House, as well as a resident of MPUP. I'm here to support the Atlanta Clean Energy Fund. I'm a professional, I'm a former South Face employee, so I have a building science background. I have a master's from Virginia Tech in building science and construction management, energy burden. Obviously, like you've heard all these stats, but I want to give you a different perspective for the homeowners. So let's say a homeowner is paying $150 difference in their utility bills. That $150 per month translates into $54,000 over the life of a mortgage, the 30-year mortgage, and that's without including the interest. So let's look at that $54,000 and look at how that comes into wealth disparities when you get into race and things of that nature, and all of those spending opportunities that could have been put back into the city of Atlanta or our economy or put towards their children and things of that nature. So let's keep that in mind when we're looking at how this thing can incrementally grow out of control. Everyone wants to have an extra $54K over the time of their home ownership, which is the first step to the American dream, right? So let's look at these things and let's be on the right side of history right now. You've already heard about the rate hikes. We already know about the money that we've already taken to be in compliance by 2035. I don't want to start getting into the workforce development and the livable wages and all of those things. I just want to talk about the Atlanta Clean Energy Fund right now, and this is the right thing to do. I think it's a no-brainer. And if this doesn't happen, I will be back asking for more money with better statistics. So don't drop the ball on this, and I'm going to have more people. So I just want to let you know that. And my name is very distinct, Costco Jones, and I promise I'll be back if it does not go through. Y'all have a great one.
Ernest Rogers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ernest Rogers. I'm an employee with South Face Institute, a sustainable building nonprofit based here in Atlanta that does work all across the Southeast in sustainability and sustainable buildings. And I'm happy to be here today to say that South Face Institute supports the Atlanta Clean Energy Fund in its efforts to expand low-income clean energy installations and weatherization services and improve significant energy burdens and energy equity for the residents of Atlanta. We believe it is important for the city to use resources to improve energy equity, reduce harmful energy burdens, and improve housing quality and affordability, and see positive improvements regarding the impacts of climate change and building occupants' health. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwan Robinson, followed by Desiree Smith.
Afternoon, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day to all the ladies in here. I want to speak about the Special Victim Assistance organization. I too am support of that because I, born and raised here, my 46 years, that was a crime that happened at Midtown by a lesbian woman and her dog. It was the most heinous crime I've ever seen in my life. The most heinous crime at Midtown, this woman guts cut out of her and the mutilation of her dog. And then we got transgender women out here getting killed because they choose to be that. Not deceiving men, saying they're that's being killed because of that. So many more instances, man, why we need to fund this. 40 years they've been in existence, and I just think that we need to do better. I would be remiss if I didn't give Mr. Jadeep and his team special kudos. For y'all that don't know, the procurement department, I went to them and said, hey, listen, are you guys aware that there's a lot of black folks in Atlanta that don't know how to even bid on contract, don't know how to be a supplier, don't know how to register? He said, hold on, what do we need to do? Say no more. Mr. Bala, within 2 hours of the procurement, putting it on the website, standing room only, filled, over 300 people registered. We can't even invite no more people, right? He said, furthermore, let's do it for Black History Month. Since you care so much, let's do it in this month to bring the people out here. I just think more people should follow suit of the procurement department and understand the nature of just getting people access. Not just get people access. That's all we ask for in this city is the access and the information that we don't have. And lastly, Mr. Sugar, I'm kind of disappointed. I'd be remiss if I don't say this. This is how divided we are once again. You don't allow time to be shared. That's your right as a chairperson. But I think it also infringes a little bit on people's First Amendment right to speak. If this lady can't get up here to speak, if she's trembling, she should be able to say, Mr. Robinson, would you speak for me? I don't agree with that because Mr. Warren didn't allow it, Mr. Hillis don't allow it, but all the black chairperson allow it, but the white ones don't. I just don't think that's fair, man. I'm just being honest with you. There's enough divide us, but at council, we vote for y'all, but you still won't allow people to speak. Mr. Warren, you okay with that? Are you okay with the people that vote for you saying that, hey, man, you looking at the time, you know what I'm saying? Are you okay with the same people that vote for you turn around and say, hey, man, you only limit to 3 minutes. I know other folks allow, but I won't allow. If you're okay with that, then so be it. I'm just letting you know how it look. That the white council member don't allow yielded time, but the black ones do, man. That is a shame.
And our final speaker today is Desiree Smith, also to speak to the Clean Energy Fund. And then after that, I know Mr. Wan, along with Ms. Bakhtiari, are the two principal sponsors of that resolution. I think he'd like to give a brief update.
Hi, my name is Desiree Smith, Dr. Desiree Smith, as I am a Doctor of Public Health student at Mercer University. As well, I have the honor as being the program manager at Girl Plus Environment, a local-based Atlanta organization with a national outreach to fight for environmental justice and climate justice. As members of the council, I'm here to let you all know why we should be supporting the Clean Energy Fund, previously discussed, is how this is Black History Month. And as we talk about investing in our communities, we should be prioritizing those most marginalized. It has been brought up quite a few times to you as council members that Black people in this city are living under a higher energy burden than others. But what has not been brought up, and maybe you might have gleaned from that from the anecdotal stories earlier, is the impact on our health. That being said, when you don't have access to clean energy or energy that is affordable, this can not only cause displacement and eviction of our Black residents, but is also correlated with asthma, pulmonary disease, and stroke, something that we know for sure that Black people have a disproportionate burden for, including that of an energy burden. And the continued lack of investment and increased energy rates are making it harder for households to access affordable energy. Energy companies, however, are making more than $1 billion a year from Atlanta. Power rates, as it's been suggested before, will grow 45 to 50% by 2025 from its 2019 baseline. I know through the Energy Justice Ambassador Program that I led with students from Spelman College and others that work here in Atlanta, Black and brown women and non-binary people, that they've been commissioned to go out into their communities and talk about energy justice. Of course, we're not leaving this work to just the council, but however, as taxpayers, as homeowners such as myself living in Atlanta, we do need your collective support. The community is very interested in energy justice, and they're very interested in achieving energy equity, especially for our Atlanta Black residents. I also ask that we invest $10 million a year into this clean energy fund so that we can reduce energy costs for those who need it most, as well as alleviate the strain on public health resources and create a more resilient and equitable city for all. This allocation would not only benefit our environment, but also our economy, creating jobs and fostering innovation in the clean energy sector. I urge you to support the vital initiative and allocate $10 million annually to the Clean Energy Fund. Let us lead by example and pave the way for a greener, healthier, and more equitable future for Atlanta and beyond. Thank you for your attention and time.
Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to first thank all the supporters and advocates for coming out today and reminding us the importance of this initiative. Councilmember Bakhtiari has been leading on this issue, and I've been working with her, or them rather, the last part of last year to formulate something that we can then put before council. I think the current challenge that we've run into is that the original funding source we thought we could use ran into some legal problems as we were advised by law. So now we're just trying to figure out what the appropriate funding sources. As Councilmember Shook mentioned earlier, this is the perfect time because we're about to enter into budget season. I know that we'll continue the discussion with CFO Bala, but I know that they and I are very committed to continuing this and providing some program and funding, because this really is just the perfect complement to the discussions we're having around affordable housing. You know, we need to put people in homes. We want to make sure that they are able to stay there and live comfortably. So keep the pressure on us, but just know that that's where we're at right now, is just sharpening our pencils on the funding source. All right, so thank y'all.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for coming out today. Now we're going to go back a little bit to item E, which is the 2024 Finance Executive Committee Goals and Objectives. These have been circulating around for 2 or 3 cycles now. You have the current list in your packet. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to adopt. Second. Okay, second by Keisha Shawn Waits. If there's nothing else, let's open that vote.
The vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it, so ordered. The goals and objectives have been adopted. Now, Commissioner Smith, thanks for your patience.
No problem. It's playing the hokey pokey back there. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. Tarlisha Williams-Smith, Human Resources Commissioner for the City of Atlanta. been a minute since I've given a quarterly report. Okay, we've given our vision several times, but for those who are tuning in for the first time, oh, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone, and to my husband if he's watching. I get points for that later, but he's not here. The City of Atlanta Department of Human Resources provides leadership in creating an equitable and inclusive culture that drives diversity, excellence, and innovation by recruiting and supporting talent, fostering wellness, executing on an executive strategic plan, and positively influencing the employee work experience. We are an employee-centric workforce here at the City of Atlanta. Jumping into the greatest hot topic that we've had in a long time, that is compensation, which everybody's asking about. We are culminating or coming to a close with the classification and compensation studies. With Mercer and Evergreen, we have forged a great partnership with those two vendors, and we've had several town hall meetings, I believe 2 with Evergreen and 1 with Mercer. The town hall meetings, the goal of the town hall meetings is to make sure that we have objective and transparent information flowing from administration, our electeds, and the employees. The information flow to make sure that we control the narrative about what's happening with what we're doing with the compensation studies. And with that information, we want to say that we've had several meetings with the vendors and our employees. You can see the percentages and the statistics here where it's been more than half of the workforce of the employees who participated have actually tendered or been able to yield great results for the survey. So moving forward, on February 21st, we will have a virtual town hall meeting with the mayor, and that information, much of that information will be shared. I will say right now before, in terms of controlling the narrative, that it's important that we understand that we are still in a development process of, how do I want to say this correctly? Analyzing the information so we can bring it forward for the next budget process. I hope that makes sense, Mr. Bala. With that information, we just want to make sure that the employees understand that when we embarked upon the compensation study project, that it was to be inclusive of all employees, all job descriptions, at all levels, not just at exec and not just at the entry level for all the positions in the city. So it was a top-down review and a bottom-up review of all the positions in the city, and that effort was headed up by our Director of Classification and Compensation, Merlandi Vincent, and supported by the rest of the HR team and DC Roberts. So with that information, we look forward to everyone participating with us next week on February 21st for the update on the classification study for the first phase. Moving on to strategic priorities for the same area. Performance management. One of the charges that I received from this committee was to make sure that we do employee evaluations. We're happy to say that that effort has been completed or started. We initiated, this will be the first year of full evaluations. We started that on January 1st. So at this point, all the employees have been able to go in or should be going into the system and loading in their goals for evaluations. And we expect fully by January of next year to be able to do full evaluations for all employees working for the City of Atlanta. That was launched on January 1st. Talent acquisition, another hot topic, jobs. We've had a lot of partnerships here with our finance department, fire department, 311, E911, and parks. With the Great Promise Partnership Career Fair, where we're working with at youth individuals and giving them the opportunity to figure out how to get into the workforce here in the city or anywhere else, just basically teaching career readiness. Some good stuff. Talent acquisition. DHR has made significant progress in reducing the time to fill positions. One of the charges that we received last year, and this quarterly update is coming in February, so there will be information that's kind of well, it's for October to December of last year, so you will receive information also up to date as well. So up through December of last year, we reduced the time to fill down to 44 days. The national average is 119. One of the charges that we received from this committee and a few others was asking the questions constantly, why is it taking so long for people to get onboarded? Why is it taking so long to fill positions? Well, we are working feverishly to reduce that number, and right now, we're well below the national average of 119 days, down to 44. And we have an excellent competitive offer acceptance rate. Right now, when we make an offer, at least 93.2 of the individuals accept the jobs. And that is attributable to all city efforts from, all of the departments and the collaboration with the commissioners in sharing information with us about their needs, the charge that we receive from this committee, the support that we receive from this committee and administration, and being able to pay more attention and throw more resources at the process at which we use to make those offers to employees and reviewing the jobs. And actually going through this process with the classification and compensation study has been giving us the opportunity to do that. And internally, we're able to promote employees within by giving attention to that process. This is a snapshot of the many hiring events that were shared on social media and that actually took place during the last quarter. Upcoming priorities for talent acquisition. Greater emphasis on internal mobility. We have several people in the city asking all the time, what else can I do or how can I move up? We have career conversations with those employees. And right now, talent acquisition is headed up, formerly by Ms. Finley, who's moved on to executive director, but now by Ms. Catherine Lilly Johnson. And in that space, she's come up with several creative ideas with the support of DC Roberts about how we can do things differently, out of the box thinking to move forward with our employee retention and internal mobility. And internal mobility, we don't mean just getting a promotion. We want to have career conversations because we have veterans, employees. I understood the other day, we may have someone working in the city who's been here for 60 years. I don't know how many more of those we'll get, but we have several here right now who want to continue their career in the city, and we invite them to come and sit down with our talent acquisition department to have those conversations. We've started our discussions and promotion of our internship season. Between March, April, and May, we'll be having those discussions with the candidates, with the local colleges, the community, to onboard our candidates and the future employees for our internship program. We had a very robust program last year, and several of the departments really dug in and did all types of different projects with the employees. So we're looking forward to those partnerships and collaborating with the various departments this year. Again, optimizing the candidate relationship is basically what we discussed, not only just for the interns and for candidates. For us are not just external candidates. We look at our internal candidates the same way, and forging a relationship to make sure that we maintain objective goals and transparency for all opportunities for everyone internally and externally within the city. And elevating the employer brand. We've embarked upon emphasizing our social media presence as it relates to hiring and retention of our employees, and trying to show and showcase the best of what the city has to offer and why we want to be the #1 choice employer for employees in the United States. Here's a quarterly statistic. Last quarter, we hired about 546 or onboarded 546 individuals. Employees now, they're not individuals anymore, team members. And the small numbers at the bottom are actually by department. Oracle time and labor. This is another first for the city. On February 1st, we successfully launched, and about 4,100 of our employees were able to clock in. The Oracle time and labor system helps us to be compliant with federal law and making sure that employees are clocking in and clocking out, and we can actually manage the working relationship and the hours worked for employees and comply with all legal rules that are associated with the clock in and clock out. There were several challenges that we're facing that before in terms of the different levels, but we've overcome that for the most part. And now we have a few hiccups, but we will be moving forward with continuing to implement the program. I'll park here for a second because the department that works in that area that has been helping us with some of the other things that you're going to see coming up with FFCRA, Oracle Time and Labor, Performance Management, our HRIS department has been working nonstop. That's a small team that has to actually touch each one of these processes. And I just want to take the time to compliment Director Jerice Isaac and her team for the work that they've done in that space and working with the various departments. And all the department heads, the commissioners who have actually encouraged the employees and the labor units who have also explained to employees how important it is for all of us to migrate over to this system for uniformity in the city. Employee OTO training, the same training that, the same process that we just spoke to just recently. I wish you all would stop with the little caricature. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. OTL training, again, back to HRIS, our HRIS department, along with our ODL, Organizational Development Learning Department, have partnered, and they have been working together to develop training via the AI process, which has been pretty successful. We have employees who are actually using it. I looked at the program. It's pretty good, and we're trying to expand that we will be expanding that into other spaces. So thank you for that. This is caricature. Cost of living adjustments, another advantage for the employees, another plus. We have been able to implement via this administration the second COLA this year of 3.5%. It initially started at 2.5, but we were able to process over 8,000 COLAs in less than 2 weeks during January of this year. So all the employees received the 3.5% COLA. FFCRA is what we've all talked about, especially this committee. It was at a stalemate for a minute, but we were able to work through quite a few discussions at the end of last year, and successfully with the finance department and led by Chief Bala, we've been able to actually physically implement. I believe the employees received their first payout on February 9th, and there's a second cycle coming in July. Yes, in July. And a few more, you can see them listed there, but employees have to properly register in time, read and sign in order to receive. They have to opt in by reading and signing the documentation and forwarding it so it can be processed. Employee headcount, which can change by the second or the hour as I'm standing here, but as of December 31st, it was 8,866. Normally, we just tell everybody we have 10,000 jobs, just pick one. Vacancies that we have, vacant positions that are actually authorized and funded is 2,733. And many of those are probably pending right now, some hires coming on board in the city. These are the field positions that describe what I just mentioned to you.
Thank you, and we love charts and graphs and pie charts. Those are our favorite parts.
Are you getting at me, Mr. Shook? You do? They're real. Okay. They're accurate. The first one was filled, and these are the vacant. And that way you can take a snapshot by each department. And we have active and ongoing discussions under the leadership of DC Roberts and his team. We have an opportunity to take a snapshot at this every day. I have it on my dashboard in my office. When I open up my computer, I can see exactly what our head count is. But we are having continuous and ongoing discussions with the commissioners to make sure that we're looking at their critical positions as well as those that, may be obsolete at this point. So right now, we think we're in a decent space where the positions have been scrubbed that, we have on the books what we need to actually keep the city running. Terminations, I believe that number is 313. That's the total number of separations since between October and December of 2023. Part of the number, I believe, in the Parks Department is relatively high because it's the end of seasonal assignments. So the rest of those are administratively administered, and the separations were proper at the time. Turnover metrics, I believe we dropped down about 2%. Yes, we're down to 1.22 for this quarter, the past quarter. Another chart, pie. This is our Organizational Development Department. They have, on the very next page, quite a few initiatives that are moving forward, but I'd like to report that under the leadership of Daryl and Poindexter, that we have quite a few nice metrics to report out on our compliance training. There you can see our citywide mandatory compliance training is, I think the lowest number there is about 74%. But for the most part, we're averaging 80s and 90s, which I think is exceptional for an organization this size. So kudos to you, Ms. Poindexter, for the work that you've done in that space with your team. She has an amazing yet small team and growing that is citywide, and she's also participating in or opened up some different opportunities for our summer youth and employment training program and the interns that come on board with training in collaboration with our, under DC COLAS, Candace COLAS, with our Office of Labor and Employment Relations. I can almost not see that. Strategic priorities, basically many of the things as I just spoke to, the right side of the column mostly relates to aviation under the direction of Mr. B at the airport, our general manager. Several initiatives related to youth and his team and getting them trained and up to speed in the aviation space, and continuing on with the mandatory compliance training. We have open records and several other training opportunities that Ms. Poindexter has embarked upon with her group, using AI as well. OLR, Office of Employment and Labor Relations. We have closed about 46 investigations, open investigations of city employees, and that was at the end of the last quarter, and also moving forward, the Civil Service Board, that is, I don't want to say reestablished, but has reconvened. We were able to have about 6 hearings there. So we're moving forward with employee investigations and employee appeals. Rollout for disciplinary action review. Some of what you saw in the last slide is related to this. This is basically giving a snapshot of how we review discipline in the city that reaches our office. About 23 in the third column relate to actually what we review, and other disciplinary or related matters are 19. The Office of Medical Leave, the division of OLR that we wanted to standardize to make sure that employees have a confidential place to come and have a discussion about medical challenges that they may have and where we can support. That process has been standardized and automated. Right, DC Colas? Yes, standardized and automated so that we have fewer touches and fewer opportunities for vulnerabilities and leak of information about employees' confidential medical challenges. 215 of the 237 applications for FMLA were approved in the last quarter, and 32 in the ADA space of 51. Policy and planning. We were challenged again by not just this committee, but others in the city as well as administration about getting a telework policy, which I'll go back to that space in just a minute after I mention the drug and alcohol policy, the dress code. All of these are effective as of January 1st. So we will have a conversation after we have discussions in cabinet about these different policies. We'll start filtering them down to the workforce. Going back to telework, we have been working remotely post-COVID for quite a bit. I know one of the topics when I started back in September of 22 was to try to get employees back to work. That is a goal moving forward to the fall. We'll have information regarding rolling 40s and scheduling. I just have to run some different opportunities by administration and make sure that operationally we won't have any challenges, but the goal is to get our workforce back to work. So working does not necessarily mean that you will remain teleworking and remote from home for the remainder of your career with the City of Atlanta. Tuition reimbursement. I can talk about tuition reimbursement. We have a policy now. We have the forms. We have everything. And we are currently in partnership with the Finance Department developing a code for actual payment of the reimbursement. Everything else is completed. We'll do some training in that space and move forward with the tuition reimbursement program. I can highlight that we do have an established relationship with Atlanta Technical College that will give opportunities to our employees to actually get either certifications or small degree programs in that space based on the funding that's allocated. Ethics Point integration. Ethics Point is a program, a software platform that allows all of our legally compliant programs to speak to one another and for us to have better tracking in the HR space. That area, again, is headed up by DC Candace Colas, Deputy Commissioner Candace Colas, and she found this program after looking at FMLA, all of our investigative arms, and the different programs that we have in those areas to try to combine them in one so we can look at our metrics and statistics across the city for different issues that employees may have and see if we are trending in specific areas and keep track of that, and also give us timely turnaround with the numbers that we gave you basically with the closure of the investigations and the CSB, Civil Service Board hearings. Centralized COVID reporting. That doesn't mean centralized COVID reporting for everybody to see. That's for HRIs only. Just to make sure that we are not trending in specific areas in the city, and we will be able to identify where we may have clusters or issues with different segments of the workforce to be able to look at it at a glance. But it's a central depository for us to keep, I don't want to say keep tabs, but keep track of employees who may have been impacted by the virus. And HR will actually have its own internal internship and externship program. The second class will convene this year. Benefits, pension, and wellness. A lot of talk about that last year with the recent contracts. We now have open access for those who don't know what that is. Open access is basically you can go wherever we have our vendors in any state. We're not relegated to the state of Georgia, so it also helps our retirees in that space. The solicitation for the benefit, our health benefits for last year has been completed. It's a 2-year contract, but we will come back to this committee every year for industry standards and practice to get metrics to be able to set our rates on an annual basis. We had a successful showcase. It was our second this past year. I believe we had 3,017 employees and retirees to actually get service during that time period. And you can see here that we have had several different workshops and programs for the employees: retirement, pension, financial literacy, Social Security Administration, and your benefits, basically discussions and helping employees understand the benefits that they actually have. We have several employees who have benefits allocations on the books or have entitlement rights to benefits that they are not signed up for, that they need to register for. We've had a few campaigns, but we will continue to do that, and that's for benefits as well as pension, and speaking primarily in the pension space to designation of beneficiaries, which is very important, and updating that information. We've transitioned over from Prudential to Empower. And finally, I know this was a big charge for us in the wellness space. It's to have a doctor onboarded over at the Wellness Center. We welcomed Dr. Ruby Thomas, I believe about a month or so ago. She's there at the Wellness Center, and we also have Saturday hours once a month, and I believe maybe expanded hours. I'm not sure if we settled on a time for the expanded hours, but we were basically trying to increase the saturation in that space. I know that was one of the charges from you, Mr. Shook, early on when I started here at the city. Open enrollment. This is more information about what I discussed with the benefits open enrollment. It's just a breakdown. Another chart for you, Mr. Shook. Open enrollment elections. We had a passive enrollment this time, which means that you didn't have to do anything if you didn't want to change anything, but you see the statistics there about the actual employee actions over the time period. More metrics. We went from a very small number of wellness visits and fitness center engagement. You can see that we had pretty good numbers over the last 3 months. With participation and use of the Wellness Center and the Fitness Center. Benefit strategic priorities, moving forward with the drug testing and RFP solicitation. I believe right now, is it Caduceus, we are currently working with, but the RFP is going out for that. And again, several different seminars, webinars, and symposiums that we will have in the employee space, trying to be a little bit more employee-centric and letting employees know what is available and what they can do to be healthier in that space. That unit is headed up by Michael Naftaniel, and Taylor Booker is working with him on the wellness side of that. We would like to see, just take a minute here to have a conversation about 3 leading, or at least 2 of the leading issues that we have in this community and with our employee workforce is high blood pressure and diabetes. One of the other ones, we were gonna have a vitamin D campaign, but we noticed that in those areas we have, we're looking at the trend across medical information to make sure that we are giving the best opportunity for employees to improve in those areas. We have a wellness center right outside of City Hall across the street. It's open later, it's open 1 extra day on Saturdays, and you can call. They do telehealth visits as well. We want employees, we encourage the employees to use that service because they help you in the wellness space to become healthier and more informed about those different issues in the community, along with the campaigns that Mr. Naftaniel is taking around the city to the different departments. There's one happening today. Know your heart, but you do have to fast before you go because they're taking different types of metrics. So these are the upcoming events. There's one on the 6th, and we have the 14th tomorrow. It's going to continue, so you can fast tonight and go over there tomorrow and get your metrics. And another one on the 22nd. I like to talk about this space, but I don't like to talk about this space. I like to talk about it because I like to talk about what we're offering, but some of the services that we've had to provide have been very unfortunate for us in the APD space and other areas of the city where we've had some different challenges and tragedies in the city. But just do know that we have the Employee Assistance Program that stands ready and available to serve every single member of this workforce. It's very important that employees who are facing challenges, especially in the mental health space, to access these benefits. I heard someone earlier talking about access. We are doing our best to make sure that our employees have access to all the benefits and services that they need to stay well physically and mentally here as a city employee. So please make sure that you reach out to our EAP program. If you don't get them directly, you can always reach out to HR, the DHR office directly, and we can connect you to that program. But there are several different opportunities that you have for your mental and physical wellness that you can access through the EAP program. More metrics, Mr. Shook. Not a chart, though. Okay, Anthony. Strategic priorities. One of the main priorities that we worked through with employees through the last quarter during the holidays is suicide awareness. I know that there was some training that took place with, especially in the public safety space, but all employees. It's one city, one workforce, headed by Dr. Carla Moore and Darius Mitchell. Carla Moore handles the public safety side, and Darius Mitchell handles the general employee side. But suicide awareness and mental health, first aid, there are several different services that are available. This list is comprehensive, but it's not exhaustive. We do this and a lot more in that space, all the way up to healthy eating. And you have the wellness center, the juice bar is open, so we're doing everything we can to put our best foot forward to make sure that the employees know that the services and the benefits are available to them. The Public Safety Behavioral Health and Wellness Unit, again, is headed up by Dr. Carla Moore, and this is a unit that was created, the first of its kind in the city, and we have heard probably in the country, that actually provides mental health and wellness services to our public safety department. Police, fire, and corrections is on site, and they have daily access, 24-hour access to this team for dealing with regular ongoing life, and as well as high priority incidents where they dispatch out to the actual scene, or if they can, if it's safe, or they're able to come back to the unit and have discussions at any time, 24/7 with our public safety team. More metrics, Mr. Shook. Strategic priorities for this unit to launch the wellness visits for all public safety personnel by March 1st. I believe that Dr. Moore is actually still garnering resources to help facilitate some of the programming that she has planned. We have 2 clinician vacancies right now that we will be filling in the very near future, and some admin support. Again, we want to enhance the training and make sure that the public safety arm, and I keep saying public safety because we have a vulnerability there with suicides based on what our public safety teams see on a daily basis and what they may be exposed to outside of that. But we are cognizant of that and making sure that we keep it top of mind and provide the opportunity for them to be able to have the access to this unit. Again, for us, it's 24/7. They pick up the phone if they need assistance, and Dr. Moore would dispatch her team, or they can come in. Oh, some good stuff. Best and brightest. We did win. Again, I think this, Jamar, is somewhere around Director Brown. I think this may be our 2nd or 3rd year in a row winning Atlanta's best and brightest companies to work for. So that's something, I don't know, somebody might want to clap for. That was only my team. Yay, HR, thank you. It's a kind of big deal, though. We think it's very important that the employee, and that's not just us rating ourselves, that's us being rated. One of the goals that we want to make sure, and I personally want to ensure, is that the employees, have a decent place to work. When they come, they have a voice and they're seen. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity to have a conversation about what is happening to them, for them, or with them at any given time in the city. So this is somewhat of a testament to that. So we're grateful to have been able to win this award. And it has different categories. If you'd like to see, we can provide you all with that information. Tuition reimbursement program. I spoke to that earlier, and these are the different levels and the methodology that we will deploy with the program. And we are working with the finance department to develop the code. As soon as we receive the code, with that collaboration, we will be able to provide the service, which is before the end of the spring. More information about the tuition reimbursement program. This is just a snapshot in time. If anyone is interested in the program, we ask them to reach out to our tuition reimbursement liaison. Right now, I believe in charge of that area is Mr. Michael Morning, who was recently elevated to that position. So if you have questions about tuition reimbursement, please reach out to Mr. Michael Morning, and he can explain the program to you. All right, I'm finished. Whoa.
Thank you for your report, Commissioner.
Thank you,
There is a wealth of information here. I will take you up on your request to learn more about the award that you've won, because knowing nothing about it, it seems super impressive to me and maybe got glossed over a little bit here. So anything you could send me about it so I can kind of, I guess this was both public and private?
Yes. We will send the award, there's a full report, and it's broken into categories from employee satisfaction to rating all different areas of human resources and employee experience. But we will send that to you. Post haste.
Yep, would love to see it. All right, questions, colleagues? Mr. Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. Just a quick comment. I appreciate the emphasis on kind of recruiting. I think that's a common theme you've heard from us up here as we get quarterly reports from the different departments. Yes. If we can deliver services better to our taxpayers and our residents and business owners if we're fully staffed. So I like seeing the metrics that you put forward in terms of the trend and the efforts that y'all are making in terms of leaning in. So keep that up. I will echo something I've said before, that to the extent that there's actions from our side to help with that, particularly to make sure that we're competitive, and I'm talking salary. I know that we've got the pay in class study coming, but if there are steps that we can take in the interim, I just don't want us to lose the opportunity to bring on good people at a time when we really need it. We've got projects backlogged, so please advise us, because we look to you for that expertise.
Yes.
The other thing I'll say is I also appreciate the leaning into the employee wellness piece. I know you and I talked about the PSA testing.
Yes.
I think I'm of a certain age now where that's important. Now, of course, King Charles has brought attention to that, but I hope to see that return in terms of initiatives that you do, along with the heart and blood sugar initiatives that you have.
Taylor, I hope you're listening. Add it to the list.
Thank you. Anyone
Thank
else?
you.
All right. You are
Thank you.
released on your own recognizance.
I'll take it. Thank you.
And now, what says Valentine's Day more than hearing from our external auditors? So,
Happy
Finance
Valentine's
Department, I'm turning this portion of today's programming over to you.
Thank you, thank you. So as you guys are well aware, we've concluded our fiscal year 23 audited financial report. You guys have been sent the link to that detail but for your viewing pleasure, we've also provided you guys with our popular annual financial report, which gives you a snapshot of the FY23 fiscal year outlook. Deputy CFO Carr is here to kind of discuss the 23 results, as well as Malden and Jenkins, who will be here to discuss the FY23 financial audit and their findings. I will say just before they start the program, this is the second year with Malden and Jenkins, and it's been a lot improved relationships since the first year. We knocked off a lot of the cobwebs, but they're great partners, and we're happy to work with them and have agreed to the findings that you guys will see. It's also, you'll see some significant improvements year over year in the city's financial audit and the results from that audit. I'd like to thank the whole team, Deputy CFO Carr, Controller Johnson, and newly minted Deputy Controller, where's she at?
Tiffany.
Anaya,
raise your hand.
Okay, turn it over to Deputy Carr.
Thank you, CFO Bala. So wanted to start off by sharing what we actually do for year end. We have a lot of reports that we prepare. So on the screen, you'll see some of the reports that we prepare. We have our annual comprehensive financial report, which is called the ACFR, and that's for the Central. We also have this for watershed, aviation. In addition to that, we have the pension plans. We have general, fire, and police. And in addition to that, we have other ancillary reports that we must submit to the state. Most, E911, T-SPLOS, car rental, just to name a few. And all of the reports that you see before you, they have already been completed. There's only one that's outstanding, and that's a single audit, and we expect to have that done by the end of March. On the next slide, we wanted to talk a little bit about revenues. So right now, when you look at FY22, we had revenues of $2.8 billion compared to year end. For FY23, revenues were $3.5 billion. And really, if you take a look at the green for aviation, we increased revenues from $708 million to $1.2 billion. So really, this is just due to the traffic that we're seeing through the airport. More people are traveling post-pandemic. In addition to that, we have watershed that increased from $673 million to $727 million. And again, this has a really correlation with aviation because now we have more businesses. We're using water and wastewater, so you see that increase there. In the dark blue, you'll see general government, and this is everything else outside of the enterprise funds. We had revenues of $1.3 billion compared to $1.5 billion for FY23. And really, this is mainly property taxes, local option sales taxes, revenues that we generate in the general fund, in addition to E911, just to name a few. Now, you'll see with solid waste is pretty flat, and we'll talk a little bit more about solid waste. We have $65 million for FY22. For FY23, we have $64 million. So all in all, we have a really good story as far as with our revenues when we close out our year end for FY23. On the next slide, and I know a lot of you all have seen this slide before, this is our fund balance. So the story that we want to paint here is that we have a really healthy fund balance here. So we've grown the fund balance from FY22 to FY23 by $6 million. But again, the story here is we have a healthy fund balance, and you can see that it has increased over the years. The next slide I wanted to talk about is watershed. So with watershed, we wanted to talk about the net position here. So if you look at the net position, 76% is related to capital assets, and mainly this is the water plants that you see here. 5% is restricted for capital projects, and then we have 19% that's unrestricted. But you'll see that this has increased year over year as well. For the Department of Aviation, the same story here. We have increased the net position by $402 million. So what this is mainly in the dark red. You see 70% is for net investments in capital assets. So some examples of the runways and the terminals. And then we also have 17% restricted for debt service and capital projects. And again, this is for Concourse D, parking south. For the parking. So we wanted to share with you that 13% is unrestricted, but really a really good story for both aviation and watershed as well. On the next slide, we want to talk about the deficit funds. So with group insurance and solid waste, those are our two deficit funds. We have actually decreased group insurance by 42.3% year over year. Solid waste has decreased 13.5%. And so what we're doing is we're looking to eliminate these deficit funds over the next few years. So we've been pretty aggressive about doing that. And so we're committed to making sure that we reduce the deficit funds and eventually eliminate them. On the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about pension. So overall, when you look at this slide, the story here is that we're funded somewhere around the 70% for all three pension plans for general, fire, and police. And so as we move forward into the outer years, we do anticipate the funding will increase as the market assets fare a little bit better in the market. So we wanted to share that. The last slide I want to talk about is OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, which is where we have the medical benefits for retirees. So you'll see that that liability has decreased over the years. Last year was $884 million. This year, the liability is $756 million. So we're doing more to make sure that we decrease this liability over the years as we move forward with making sure that we're responsive as a city to make sure we reduce this. So now I'm going to pause for a second, and I'm going to turn it over to Doug. Oh, he's behind me. Sorry, Doug, I see you. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having us here today to present the audit results for the City of Atlanta. I've passed out a hard copy for you all as well if you want to kind of follow that, or you can look at your screen. So we're just going to kind of touch on some of the highlights. If you have any questions as I'm going through, stop and ask, or I can address those questions at the end of the presentation. All right. Should I point somewhere else? If you want, I can just go ahead and start, and y'all can catch up on the PowerPoint. There it is. All right. Okay. All right. All right, so just a quick update about Martin Jenkins. We've actually served over 700 governments. I need to update this slide here. And we actually have 14 offices in 6 states. And of that 700 plus clients that we serve in the Southeast, over 150 received the GFOA Award in Excellence in Financial Reporting, including the City of Atlanta in that number. As far as the engagement team, we wanted to, have a continuity of leadership from the first year's audit on this engagement. And so again, we had 9 partners at Martin Jenkins involved. I was responsible for the city's overall audit engagement. James Bench was over aviation, and Josh Kerr was over watershed, and Allison Wester was over the 3 pension plan audits. And then Hope Pendergrass is kind of overseeing the single audit right now. Also, we maintain the same 2 minority subcontractors on the engagement, Bamboo, who's here in the audience today, and also Ruth Washington of Choice Business Solutions. Sorry. and Will. Will is here as well. Will was the first year of the audit. He was a manager. He was promoted this past fall as a director, and so again, he was kind of overseeing Central and Watershed as well. As far as the services that Martin Jenkins provide, we serve a lot of governments, a lot of other entities as well, other than your traditional accounting and tax services. And so you can see the different industries that we serve and the different services that we provide, again, other than your traditional accounting and tax services. Of course, the financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility is to give an opinion that your financial statements are materially correct. We've issued an unmodified or clean opinion on your ACFR for Central. We did make reference to other auditors for the blended and discretely presented component units, Atlanta Development Authority or Invest Atlanta, Atlanta Fulton County Recreation Authority, as well as the Atlanta Housing Opportunity, Inc. Those entities are audited by other auditors, and we relied on their reports and made reference to them in our opinion. We also issued an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements for aviation and watershed, with those statements being separately issued, clean opinions there. And then also for your 3 pension plans, clean opinions on those for your general employees, firefighters, as well as police officers. In accordance with the government auditing standards, we did have issue a report that does cite one material weakness finding, and we'll talk about that a little later in the presentation. And then also we have a finding related to the pension plan audits. And again, we've presented to your Pension and Investment Board last week, as well as to the Audit Committee as well. We'll be issuing the single audit report sometime next month. As far as significant accounting policies, the city did implement a new accounting policy this year relating to GASB statement number 96, which deals with subscription-based IT arrangements, very similar to GASB 87, dealing with leases. And so that standard actually impacted the city overall, as well as aviation and watershed. Main thing here I want to point out is, as it relates to our relationship with management, we receive full cooperation from management staff and others. There were no disagreements with management on accounting issues or financial reporting matters. As far as audit adjustments, we did propose some audit adjustments. Some of those adjustments did result in a finding. We'll talk about that a little later. But those adjustments are reflected in the city's general ledger as well as in its ACFR. We did have some past audit adjustments that were not material. Management agreed to pass on making those journal entries as of June 30, 2023, due to them being immaterial, but those items will be reflected in your fiscal year 2024 activity. As far as our independence, we are independent of the city and its financial reporting process in accordance with AICPA professional standards. There were no fees paid to Martin Jenkins for management advisory services that would have impacted our independence as your external auditor. Next few slides kind of go over some financial trends. This one is looking at your general fund, 5-year fund balance. Again, this is in thousands, and you see that your fund balance did increase by $5.9 million or 2.5% over the prior year, ending at $246 million as of June 30, 2023. And again, due to increases of property taxes, your local option sales tax revenues, licenses and permits, as well as hotel motel taxes increased significantly. The next slide is looking at your fund balance for your general fund, of course, your main operating fund over the last 5 years. Looking at fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures and transfers out. So this is a good liquidity type of ratio to kind of look at it and see how governments are doing. Again, you all are June 30 government, and so again, the rule of thumb is to have anywhere from 2 to 3 months reserve, or anywhere from 16 to 25%, and you all have surpassed that over the last several years, coming in at about 3.4 months reserve, or so great. You continue to surpass that minimum of 2 to 3 months. Not a lot of governments see that, and again, because you all have done a great job in managing your fund balance, you have not had to rely on a tax anticipation note, to get you through those subsequent months after year end until your property tax revenues come in. But the reason why your ratio did decline slightly from the prior year is because you had more transfers out this year compared to 2022 to other funds, about 105 million transfers out this year compared to 63 million in 2022. And so that dropped the ratio down a little bit. This next slide is looking at the Department of Watershed Management. Operating income over the last 5 years. It did decrease this year from 166 million down to 104 million. That's about a $61 million decrease, or 37%. While your operating income did decrease, but operating revenues increased compared to 2022, going from 482 million to 494 million. And a reason for the decrease in your operating income is due to increases in your salaries and benefits, particularly dealing with net pension liability. That increased this year compared to the previous year, and so that hit your operating expenses and resulted in you having more operating costs in 2023 compared to 2022. Next slide is looking at the Department of Aviation's operating loss. And again, this is in thousands over the last 5 years. And you did see some improvement this year. It went from $221 million of an operating loss to $167 million of operating loss. But again, a lot of your revenues come from non-operating revenues, such as your passenger charges, facility charges, as well as net investment income and grants and things of that nature. And so if you look at your non-operating revenues, that actually increased by $259 million compared to the prior year. And then also your equity or net position increased as well by $401 million over the prior year, which is about a 7.8% increase. And then also your operating revenues increased as well by $128 million. All right, looking at your sanitation service funds, operating loss or income over the last 5 years, you rebounded from 2022. Of course, the reason why you had that operating loss was a one-time litigation settlement of about $19 million that occurred in 2022. But now you're back up to $23 million of operating income in 2023. This is looking at, I'm sorry, did I go too far? All right, sanitation, all right. This is looking at your sanitation service funds net position compared to your advances and interfund balances, which is owed to other funds. And you would like to continue seeing that these two lines kind of come close together. And this is planned by the city. And so if you look at your advances and interfund balances, it did decrease from 43 million down to 37 million. And then your deficit net position improved from 115 million to 79 million. Again, this is planned and authorized by the city. Revenues should continue to increase in future years as you all approve adjustments to your property tax millage rates, as well as service fees and charges for solid waste services. And the sanitation fund started repaying the general fund $6 million on July 1st of 2023, and that will continue through July 1st of 2029 until that advance and interfund balance is paid off. Next slide is looking at your group insurance fund, similar to what I just talked about, looking at your net position and compared to your advances and interfund balances. And again, these two lines are coming closer together as you see an improvement over your deficit net position, going from 43 million to 27 million, and then your advances and interfund balances decreased as well, going from 38 million down to 22 million. And the group insurance fund will pay $3.3 million to the general fund, started on July 1st of 2023, and that will continue to July 1st of 2030 until that interfund balance is paid off. This slide is looking at your governmental activities, net position over the last 5 years, and again, improving from the 6.7 million roughly in 2022 to 350 million in 2023. And again, the increase in that is mainly due to your increase in property tax revenues, local option sales tax revenues, hotel motel tax, as well as licenses and permits. Looking at your business type activities, net position or equity over the last 5 years, you can see improvement and increase in your net position from 8.8 million to 8.8 billion to 9.5 billion dollars. And so again, you have several proprietary funds, but most of this is coming from your aviation and watershed fund. Aviation net position was about 5.5 billion. That represents 58% of the total here. And then watershed was about 3.9 billion, representing about 42% of this total. So those are your two major proprietary funds that make up this balance. Okay. All right, so again, just looking at the financial condition of the city, it continues to be strong and continues to improve year after year. And so that's where you want to see it, continue to trend upward. Like I alluded to earlier, the city did implement GASB 96, dealing with subscription-based IT arrangements. Again, very similar to GASB 87, dealing with leases. This implementation of this standard did not result in us having to restate beginning balances. You implement this standard as if the leases took effect at the beginning of the fiscal year for 2023. All right, now we go into the findings. Again, we had one material weakness finding dealing with year-end closeout procedures. And before I kind of go into these, I'll say that anytime that we bring anything to management's attention, they immediately have an internal meeting to discuss it. And once they agree with us, then they put a plan in action to make sure that doesn't happen again or occur again. And so we're very appreciative of how proactive the city is. Anytime we bring anything to their attention, they're going to do what they can to make sure that doesn't be a repeat going forward. This first bullet for this finding, year-end closeout procedures, dealing with grants and reporting for Central. We noticed that some of your special revenue funds, particularly those that have grant activity, had operating losses, showing more expenditures than revenues. And a lot of times your grant funds going to have, they're on a reimbursement basis. Your revenue is going to equal your expenditures for the most part. And so we had to make adjustments to increase revenues for these particular funds. The Community Development Fund, $1.1 million adjustment. Intergovernmental grants was about $5.2 million, and then Home Investment Partnerships Fund was about $31,000. Sorry. The second item here deals with cash for Central. We had to make an adjustment of about $1.6 million. To make sure the particular bank account was properly reconciled. What happened here was a deposit was made. It was a deposit in transit that hit your bank statement in June, but the entry on the general ledger was recorded to customer deposits liability account versus to the bank account or cash account. And so we had to make that adjustment. It's just an oversight. On the next item, continuing on with the year-end closeout finding, as it relates to property tax revenues, receivables, and unavailable revenues. As we were testing these items, we noted that I think the city had received a report from Fulton County Tax Commissioner prior to year-end. There were some adjustments that was made by the county subsequent to them sending that report. And so by the time we came out to do the audit and looking at the final report, we noticed that we had to make these adjustments, $7.7 million adjustments to reduce your property tax revenues in the general fund, $10.3 million adjustment in E911, and then the various adjustments to your TAD funds as well. So we just got to make sure if the city receives that report from the county commissioner, several weeks prior to year end, you want to make sure you kind of follow back up to make sure there's no adjustments that were made by them that needs to be reflected in your general ledger and ultimately in your financial statements. All right, so that was it as far as the one finding that we had. Again, nothing alarming, and from my opinion, we just had to make this a finding due to the dollar amount of the adjustments. Like I alluded to earlier, we did have the one finding again for the pension plan audits, dealing with the census data as well as the benefit payments. Again, similar to last year, it affected all three plans. But I will say that the error rate of these exceptions that was noted this year has improved over the prior year. And so the things that you all have implemented as far as having the consultants to come in to help the city kind of get that information cleaned up is working. And so we hope to see that error rate continue to decline in future years. I'm going to skip ahead unless you have any questions on those and go to the management recommendations for improvements. Again, these are not considered findings. These are just recommendations for improvements. You'll see these items listed in the management letter. Once the single audit is done, we'll release that management letter to you all as well. The first one deals with grant recording and financial reporting. An exercise I did with another client last year, I wanted to see of our 700 clients how our clients rank as far as the total amount of federal dollars that they receive. And so we went through that exercise and we pulled this information from the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, where you have to submit your data collection form for the single audit purposes. And so of those clients, so our top two clients that received the highest dollar amount of federal awards were two state agencies. So you kind of would expect that. Number three was the city of Atlanta. You all receive a lot of federal grants compared to a lot of other governments. And so with that influx of federal grants and even state grants that comes through here, sometimes you get cash advances ahead of you having those expenditures, allowable expenditures for those particular grants. And so sometimes it's kind of hard for the city to kind of track some of those expenditures to match up those expenditures and things of that nature. So I am recommending that the city consider maybe having an operational assessment done for its grants and grants department, just to make sure you're following best practices and things of that nature, so that things can improve during the year and make it easier at year end when you're closing out your procedures and getting ready for the audit, getting ready for the single audit and things of that nature. So it's something for you all to consider. Second management point relates to the OPEB census data. During our testing of that, relating to your other post-employment benefits, we did have 51 exceptions out of 175 census attributes that we looked at and compared to the census data information that was sent to the actuaries. And so although anytime we have exceptions, just like the exceptions for the pension plan audits that we noted, we'll get with your actuaries and say, hey, these are some of the exceptions that we noted. Does this impact your assumptions or impact your calculation of that liability? And so for your OPEB as well as the pension liability, it did not impact their assumptions and things of that nature that would have resulted in them having to go back and recalculate those liabilities. A third management point deals with cash reconciliation for your intergovernmental grants fund. We did have to make an adjustment about $229,000 to make sure that balance, so that account was properly reconciled at year end. So we just recommend the city continue to perform a detailed review of those bank accounts and bank reconciliations to make sure that they're properly recorded and reflect no differences. All right, two more management points here. Hotel motel tax fund activity tracking. The city puts together the schedule for audit purposes for us, and so in looking at that schedule, there's a lot of tweaks that had to be made to just moving things around and things of that nature. It did not impact the bottom line for the hotel motel tax fund, but we just recommend to continue improving that schedule and carefully track all of the activity throughout the year just to make sure you stay in compliance with state laws as well as requirements for the usage of those funds. Last management point deals with the defined contribution plan. Two exceptions here. One is probably a good one, I would say. We did note it that you all had forfeited funds totaling about $14.5 million that's sitting in a Mr. Forfeiture account. This amount is invested in a stable value fund, and it's recorded in your investments. According to your plan summary, it states that if you have forfeited funds, that you could use that to offset your contributions, employers as well as the employees' contributions. So management is aware of this. They're looking into it. They want to make sure that they have it locked down and correct before they decide what percentage goes to employer contributions and what percentage goes to the employees' contributions. And so, again, that's a good exception there. It can reduce your future contributions. And then the last bullet here deals with participant testing for the DC plan. And so we just noted where contributions for 2 participants were doubled on 1 paycheck. The pensionable earnings provided for 2 participants was incorrect because it included wages earned as less than full-time employee, and then 1 employee duplicated in the plan's Empower database. So continue to improve that information that's being reflected in your system. All right, but again, overall, great audit. Again, nothing to be alarmed by. From my opinion, management works very hard to get ready for the audit, to deal with their daily activities for the city. The city prepares its own ACFR. A lot of governments don't do that, and so a lot comes into that, as well as you have component units that are audited by other auditors, and so you have to communicate with them to make sure that they turn in those reports in a timely manner so that the city can issue its ACFRs by December 31st. And so a lot goes into it. And again, hats off to management staff and others for working very hard to ensure that the city is able to meet that December 31st deadline. All right, a few more slides real quick. We continue to offer free continuing education classes for our clients. You can see the various topics that we offer. And again, if anyone wants to be included on the invite list, just let me know and we'll get you added. We also offer IT cybersecurity services as well. You can see the different engagements that we can provide if you're ever in need of that, whether it's penetration testing or a cybersecurity framework engagement. We also have governmental advisory practice as well. You can see the various things that they can provide to governments, including operational assessments, operational performance audits, and things of that nature. And that concludes my presentation. Again, it was an honor and pleasure to provide services again for the city of Atlanta. It seemed like I was just here a few months ago. But again, we appreciate the opportunity to serve the city, and I can address any questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you, Chair Shook. I do have one question. The first thing that came to mind, well, first of all, I want to thank the finance team again for always coming to us with this information and going over the slides and allowing us to have our questions answered ahead of time so that when we come here, there's nothing shocking or something that we've not seen before. Thank you for taking the time to do that, because it can't be easy scheduling 7 people every single time, knowing that you're coming to council, coming before our committee, and also accommodating us on our schedules. And lots of times it really is on our schedule, just to make sure that there are no surprises. And I appreciate that each and every time. But on page 21, under the comments, recommendations, under the control over financial reporting.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder, how do we check to see what Fulton County is providing us is correct? Are we just taking their word for it? And with us using their numbers, and then you're saying that our numbers didn't reflect the correct numbers, how are we making sure that what's being provided to us is correct?
Gotcha. So of course, Fulton County is audited as well. We kind of rely on their auditors, auditing that information as well. And then also when you all receive that information, management is kind of looking through it. If something looks off, that's the opportunity for them to call them back and say, hey, this doesn't look right. And so we take that as a confirmation once we get it from them, and then we'll do some analytic procedures, substantive analytic procedures to make sure everything kind of looks right based on, did y'all do a rollback? Did you increase your millage rates? We do projections and things of that nature. And so if it doesn't jive, then we go back to the city, and then if needed, we go back to Fulton County Tax Commissioner's office and say, hey, something is not right. Can you revisit the schedule and see if there's some other adjustments that were missed?
Got it. And of course, I ask because I feel real comfortable about the numbers that you get from our deck, for sure, from the City of Atlanta deck. But I've seen, several different reports that say that they're funding one thing and then they're bringing that funding back. And I just want to make sure that we're not being cited for something that may or may not be correct.
Gotcha.
So.
And Yolanda can chime in, but she spent some time looking at this internally just to make sure, and so they did their due diligence to make sure that that number was correct for us to move forward with that adjustment.
And I think CFO Bala.
Councilmember Overstreet.
We did a lot of work on that.
The same exact comment.
Oh, did you?
I said, ain't no way we won't.
It was
And
a
we went
lot
back
of
and forth,
discussions,
back
like
and forth,
really,
and
really.
we dug deeper into it, and essentially there was a change in our revenue recognition process throughout the year that we implemented. I think is a more advanced process for the city. Historically, we just were on a cash basis, but I think we wanted to make sure that going forward that we're mindful of the receivables that we're awaiting Fulton County, so we went to an accrual process. And that kind of changed a little bit of our year-end closeout numbers. And we went back and forth, but I had the same sentiment because I was being very stubborn. And,
He was.
At the end of the day, Alderman Jenkins was right, and so we thank them for their contribution. This is why you have third-party independent audits, because you don't want to get too comfortable in your own calculations, and you definitely don't want to let your ego get in the way as well. So thank you to Ms. Carr and the team and the revenue team also. They did a great job kind of advancing us into this newer, kind of more improved process in revenue what's the word I'm looking for? Accrual process. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, good to know.
Yeah, and we do have plans on making sure that we contact Fulton County before we close out and confirming what that balance is prior to us closing out our books to make sure we both agree with the numbers and doing the reconciliation.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Chip.
Thank you. I want to thank the audit team. I want to thank the finance department. I want to thank our auditors. It's a really good report. My question that's always buzzing in my mind as I look at ours is I wonder how we stack up to other comparably, constituted city governments. And do you all have a lot of government clients?
Yes, we do.
Is this your largest, or do you have as large or larger?
You all are our largest city. We do audit some unified governments, that's, city and county combined. But by far, you are the largest city government. We do audit some state agencies as well, but you are our largest governmental client.
Is there such a thing as a perfect government audit with no findings?
I wouldn't. It depends on how what are you using to define that, and so as an auditor, again, we're always going to have management points. We're going to we're going to have some findings, just like an audit firm, or, when I turn in the state, if I'm done with the engagement, I turn everything over to the quality control review partner, he's going to find something. So you're always going to have something like that.
But what about material weaknesses, something a little more well-defined?
So government your size to only have that one material weakness finding with those items within that, I've seen where some had 15 findings or 10 findings and things of that
That's
nature.
what I was trying to get at you.
Yeah.
So I know y'all are sick of me doing this. Every time we're due for our audit, I bring in the Gothic horror story known as Ernst & Young's audit of '02, where there were dozens of material weaknesses. And I'll never forget sitting here and walking through that. That's all I have. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all as well.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, I have a question for you, Mr. CFO. Do we not have CAFRs anymore?
Next week. Yeah.
Well, that's...
We have that as well. That'll be coming to.
So it's no longer the comprehensive.
This is the
Right, the path for
popular.
abbreviated version here. But we will have it next week, the ACFR Annual Comprehensive Financial Report.
Well, I know we'll be very excited to get that. Now, all right, now we actually get to vote on some stuff after we dispense with our first reads. Ms. Kempson-Wright, can you do the honors?
Item number 1 is 24-1076, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the payment of an amount not to exceed $510,000.00 to Park Pride for the installation of new playgrounds and related improvements at 70 Boulevard Pedal Park and Benton Park on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to make payments from the account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Thank you. That takes us to ordinances for second reading. First of which is 24-01013, ordinance by Community Development Human Services Committee authorizing the mayor as designee to reinstate retroactively to December 19 of 2022 a memorandum of understanding between the City of Atlanta and Buckhead Baseball Inc. with respect to the operation and maintenance of the baseball fields at Bagley Park for recreational baseball programs. To exercise a 5-year renewal option under the MOU commencing on the dates listed here, to ratify all the actions taken by or on behalf of the city since the expiration and for other purposes. We had this referred back to this committee where this needs to be held. As of now, it's part of a bigger discussion I'm involved in regarding just maintenance and operations at Frank Allen Park, so I'll make a motion to hold. Second by Juan. Let's open that vote. Motion is to hold.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, item is held. Thank you. 24-01043 is an ordinance by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor's designee to ratify sole source agreement, the number of which is indicated, AFD First and Alerting Radio Interface Controller with Fire Station Maintenance and Support Services by WestNet, Inc., in accordance with the listed sections of the Atlanta City Code, effective May 3rd of last year for an initial term of 3 years with 3 one-year renewal term options at the sole discretion of the city in an amount not to exceed $87,447. Ms. Smith, is this you? Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon, Michael Smith, Deputy General Manager, Department of Aviation. WestNet provides the alert system for the 5 fire stations at the airport, and this agreement is the O&M agreement for those services. There was a delay in terms of negotiating the agreement with them back in between 2020 and 2023. So this document actually will ratify and make the agreement consistent with the original deal that it would be a 3-year agreement.
Which one?
It's more of a procedural question. What time frame after which we issue the first sole source agreement, do we have to reevaluate whether that sole source still is applicable? Is there a standard process? I see that we're kind of 4 years after the original procurement, and so I just want to make sure that there is that discipline and rigor when we're doing exceptions to our regular procurement model.
Well, I think there is. I know that this, with WestNet, this was a device that they had done, and they were the sole inventors, and so it was already installed, so I don't think there was another organization out there that provided the service. So it should have been like you said, a reevaluation at that time, but I'll have to defer to DOP just for confirmation.
Right, I see the CPO behind you. I just want to understand, we should be using sole sources as exception, and obviously this sounds like it qualifies, but I just want to see how often we revisit it.
Jadid Majumdar, Chief Procurement Officer for City of Atlanta. It did take us some while to negotiate the contract. So this legislation, like Mr. Smith mentioned, is to make sure we tie all the ends together. So actually Procurement Code 2-1163C 1-A actually has a provision for remedy for the award where we can tie it in. So under that section, we are trying to remedy this award.
All right, that's fine. Thank you. Move approval.
I will second that. Questions, comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. I'm going to make a motion to bring forward a substitute for 24-1052. Second by Juan. Let me read the caption. Ordinance by Westmoreland, Juan, Bakhtiari, Waits, and Boone, substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing donation in an amount not to exceed $3,000 to the Atlanta Pride Run from various carry-forward accounts pursuant to the code section listed of the City of Atlanta's charter and for other purposes. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote to bring the substitute forward.
Vote is open.
All right, substitutes before us. Any questions or comments? Motion to approve by Juan on substitute. I will second that. Anything else? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. We're going to take 5 and 6 together. If there's no objection, 24-1053 is an ordinance by Mr. Westmoreland and Ms. Boone authorizing a donation in amount not to exceed $5,000 to the Atlanta Technical College Foundation from the Post 2 at Large carry-forward account pursuant to the code section or the charter section indicated here. And for other purposes, item 6 is 24-1059, an ordinance by Mr. Dozier authorizing the transfer of $50,000 from the Council District 4 carry-forward account to the Council District 4 distribution account to continue serving the Atlanta community for the public good and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Juan. I will second that. If there's no other questions or comments, let's vote on 5 and 6.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. That takes us to 24-1062. I'll make a motion to bring forward a substitute. Second by Juan. Let me read the caption. Ordinance by Mr. Juan, substituted by FEC, authorizing the Atlanta Development Authority doing business as Invest Atlanta to create a new Atlanta Rapid Response Loan Fund to authorize the deployment of certain funds that were formerly managed by Invest Atlanta as the Empowerment Zone Revolving Loan Fund and Empowerment Zone Facade Fund in the amount of $1,105,762.31 to authorize Invest Atlanta to establish guidelines for the administration of the Rapid Response Loan Fund and for other purposes. Let's vote on bringing a substitute before us.
Vote is open.
Vote is open.
Vote is closed.
You, it's before us, Mr. Juan.
Thank you. Colleagues, I sponsored this legislation. I know that the representatives from Invest Atlanta are here to speak to this if anyone has any questions. But the purpose of this paper is to give them even more flexibility on some of the support that we can provide to our small businesses throughout the city and kind of pivot a little bit to when there are extraordinary events or activities that happen that negatively impact a specific area. Obviously, since I'm bringing this up, you can presume that it is motivated by what has happened by the bridge at Cheshire going out and being out for a different one, but again, yes. So I appreciate Invest Atlanta's creativity in coming up with this. I do think even beyond what we're asking here today, it does give them flexibility to be nimble and support businesses across our city or an expanded area. And I do ask for your support. I'll make a motion to approve on substitute, but I know that Invest Atlanta is here to answer any questions that y'all might have.
I'll second that. I do have a question, Doctor, for you. You know, boy, for these businesses that are struggling right now, time's of the essence. How long do you anticipate it's going to take you to cobble this program and the guidance together?
So thank you. My name is Dr. Eloisa Clemente, proud president and CEO at Invest Atlanta. So there's a couple things we did. It is called the Rapid Response Loan Fund. So we are moving quite quickly as well. The item will be heard at Invest Atlanta's board tomorrow, and it will be hopefully approved by our board contingent on your approval. So as soon as you approve next week, I could probably get some loans out or start accepting applications as soon as next week.
Oh. Yeah, that's great. Well, all right, we've got a motion and a second. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
The motion to approve on substitute. The ayes have it, so ordered. We're at resolutions. 24R3174 is a resolution by Ms. Overstreet to appoint council members Amos and Winston to the two positions on the City of Atlanta Procurement Reform Task Force for the promotion of public trust, to be filled by two members of the governing body for the purpose of performing the duties and responsibilities of the task force and for other purposes. And motion to approve. Second by Mr. Wan. We're not allowing any discussion here, so let's open the vote. Really? Okay. Ms. Waits, you're up.
It's not germane to this. The Georgia Municipal Association Board appointment is also ending, and so that opportunity will be coming up before this body. And I apologize for disrupting the meeting, but I just wanted you to know that I just received notice that the term is up. Thank you.
Ms. Overstreet.
So I know our parliamentarian had a big problem with that, right? Since it's not, right? But I just really want to thank you two for standing up and saying yes to me and being part of this procurement reform task force. So for that reason, colleagues, just vote yes and be happy they said yes.
Because we have find it a lot easier to stand up and say yes to you than to say no.
Whatever that means.
Ball and toad. Ball and
Okay.
toad.
So, thank you.
Would anyone else like to be recognized for purposes of discussion? Let's open the vote.
Vote is closed.
Thank you. We're going to take 9 and 10 together. 24R3184 is a resolution by Shook authorizing the mayor or his designee to issue a task order, the number of which is indicated here, citywide A&E services with construction phase services Group B large. The RFPs are indicated here, with Dream ATL joint venture team to conduct a study to provide recommendations for improvements to the city's litter receptacle program in an amount not to exceed $88,075, with all contracted work being charged to and paid from the sources indicated. Number 10 is 24R3185. This is a resolution by Shook authorizing the mayor's designee to issue the task order, number of which is indicated. City A&E construction phase services Group B large with Dream Atlanta joint venture team to prepare a roadway visible litter characterization plan to implement the Keep America Beautiful 2020 National Litter Study methodology and protocol in an amount not to exceed $65,210, with all contracted work being charged to and paid from, et cetera. I have just one question. What is a characterization plan? I haven't seen that phrase before.
Deputy Commissioner Kentori Garman. Good afternoon, Chairman Shook and committee members. Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission leader, Kanika Greenlee, could not be here, so I'm standing in for her in relation to task order number 4 and 5. If you could repeat the question.
Yeah, there's a phrase here. One of the things we're expecting is the preparation of a roadway visible litter characterization plan, and I don't know what a characterization plan is.
So it's the identification of different kinds of litter that one can see on the roadway.
I will second that. Motions to approve both items 9 and 10. If there's no other discussion, let's open that vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 24R 3186 is a resolution by Shook requesting that the mayor takes into consideration and funds priorities that the Atlanta City Council recommends being included in the FY 2025 budget and for other purposes. Obviously, we're going to hold this so we have time to think about it and get our recommendations added to the list. We're doing this a little earlier than usual. The thought being that if we submit this earlier, it may end up being more influential. So I will second that. Anything else? Let's open the vote on the motion to hold.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Yeah, and so Ms. Kempson, right, you would be the appropriate intake for those?
Yes.
And I assume we would prefer to get this in next cycle?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair. It can be substituted at the February 28th meeting and move forward no recommendation for the March 4th full council meeting.
All right, excellent. 24R 3189 is a resolution by Mr. Wan authorizing the mayor to enter into an IGA with Fulton County to conduct City of Atlanta special elections, which may be necessary during the calendar year 2024 to appoint the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections acting as its agent, as municipal election superintendent for conducting said elections, as absentee ballot clerk, and as municipal registrar, and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Juan. I will second that. Anyone with any questions, comments? Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Thank you. The ayes have it. 24R 3230 is a resolution by FEC authorizing the CFO to refund $10,730.74 to Cowan & Company, Inc. for the purpose of refunding the overpayment of the 2023 occupation tax, all funds being charged to and paid from the sources indicated. Refund for overpayment. I'll move approval. Second by Juan. Seeing no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
Have it. 24R 3231 is a resolution by Finance Exec authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute amendment number 3 to add the Department of Procurement as an authorized user of the agreement and to exercise the second renewal option for a co-op agreement, the number of which is indicated here, citywide integrated security and video surveillance services with Convergent Technologies, LLC, GC&E Systems Group, Inc., and NetPlanner Systems, Inc., effective April 21st of this year through April 20th of next, expressly contingent upon the state of Georgia's renewal of the underlying state of Georgia contracts, numbers indicated here, with said users on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management, Atlanta Department of Transportation, Atlanta Police Department, Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, Department of Corrections, Municipal Court of Atlanta, Department of Parks and Rec, Department of Public Works, Department of City Planning, Department of Procurement, and the Department of Watershed Management to complete badge reader, video surveillance, equipment upgrades, video system build-out, and access controls for various Moving Atlanta Forward projects, new construction and renovations in an amount not to exceed $4,939,928.30, all funds being charged to and paid from, etc. And there is a proposed amendment, which I will move, to correct the account number for the Atlanta Police Department as listed here in the second resolve clause. So I'll move that amendment. Second by Juan. If there's no questions, let's open the vote on the amendment.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right.
Move approval as amended.
As a motion to move as amended. I'll second that. Questions or comments? Let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. 24R 3232. I will make a motion to bring in a substitute for this item. Second by Juan. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
Procedural vote to bring the substitute forward. All right, substitutes before us, the caption of which reads, a substitute resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute the Second Amendment to sole source agreement, number of which is indicated, pre-employment background screening services with Hire Right on behalf of HR to add funding for background screenings, bringing the total not to exceed amount to $382,112, and to update the funding accounts from which the contracted work will be charged and paid from and for other purposes. So substitutes before us. Commissioner, could you give us a brief rundown here?
Good afternoon again. Tarlisha Williams-Smith, Department of Human Resources. Yes, the substitute is before you because we went with Hire Right as our new vendor, and we are moving through the agreement. We just need to have more funding to get through the contract year because we realize now that some of the different requests that we make for different types of backgrounds or different checks require additional resources. So we want to make sure that we have enough to complete our contract.
So the underlying contract is with Hire Right, and we're just adding funding. That's
Yes.
it. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll move approval on substitute.
Second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, let's open the vote.
Vote is open.
All right, item is approved on substitute. We have no duels. It's the second meeting in a row. However,
You totally just jinxed it.
well, probably. That takes us to the first of our two held items that have been asked to move, first of which is item 42.
Chair Shook, if you could actually go to item 40 would be the first item to move. My apologies.
All right, which one?
Item 40.
That would be 24-0-1036, an ordinance by Ms. Overstreet as substituted by Finance Exec to amend the fiscal year 2024 budget to increase the funded revenue budget from $854,047.00 to $818 million. I struggle with that. $154,047.00 and for other purposes. Motion is to approve by Juan. Second by Winston. Any questions or comments? Let's open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
All right, the ayes have it. Now we'll go to 42, and I will make a motion to bring forward a substitute Second by Juan. Let's open that procedural vote.
Vote is open.
Bring the substitute.
Will everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
All right, substitute is before us. A substituted caption reads, a resolution by Shook as substituted by Finance Exec, authorizing the Commissioner of DWM to adjust water and sewer service charges on certain customer accounts in accordance with the Atlanta City Code section indicated here in the amount of $339,038.95 and for other purposes. Yeah, I'll second that. Questions or comments? Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
You guys have it. Next item is item 43, which is 24R3122. I'll make a motion to bring forward a substitute for that item. Second by Juan. If there's no questions or comments, let's open the procedural vote on bringing forward the substitute.
Vote is open.
All right, the ayes have it. The substituted caption reads, a resolution by Shook is substituted by FEC, authorizing the CFO to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in the amount of $75,312.38, all funds being charged to and paid from, et cetera. Okay, I'll second that. Any questions or comments? Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open.
Is the vote still open?
No, the vote is closed. The item was favorable on substitute.
Thank you. That takes us to an item which was referred to us, correct, by Public Safety Legal Administration. That would be 24-1063, an ordinance by Bond, Hillis, Westmoreland, Boone, and Lewis is substituted by Public Safety and Legal Administration to amend the code sections indicated here to establish minimum requirements for off-duty post-certified law enforcement officers to be included in city contracts subject to the procurement code to require that where necessary to comply therewith, contractors shall hire off-duty post-certified law enforcement officers employed by an agency having original jurisdiction over actions occurring at the location of contract performance and for other purposes. Motion to approve by Mr. Hillis, second by Ms. Overstreet. And perhaps someone on public safety could hum a few bars here for those of us who aren't on that committee.
Yeah, so this is similar to legislation that I think went to either one of the committees or maybe both last year. Actually, I think it was in city utilities last year, because it had specifically to do with watershed management. So that was done. So there's a move to do this to all city contracts because, when we use city money for projects and those go to outside contractors, too many times those outside contractors are hiring, Joe Schmo from the Rockdale County Sheriff's Department, which, may carry a gun and have a badge, but I mean, what do they know about Atlanta? And should city funds be going to pay people who don't work for the city and don't know our streets and issues to do traffic control, et cetera? on our street. So I don't know if Ms. Robinson wants to weigh in anymore, if it differs any from the legislation we passed last year specific to watershed, or
Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta Department of Law. This is a broader action than that which was passed last year. It was 2023. Last year, the procurement code was amended to both require traffic plans for certain construction activity, and then once the traffic, in accordance with the traffic plan, to require the hiring of post-certified officers with original jurisdiction in order to enforce the traffic plan. The legal rationale there is that only, persons who are trained in city ordinances and are familiar with going to our municipal court and those procedures will more aptly able to process those sorts of infractions that may result for violations of the traffic plan, and which would ultimately accrue to the benefit of the defendant to provide more due process and a smoother just experience for any person so cited, that there wouldn't be any procedural issues. Due to the I imagine from the policy standpoint, that rationale could be applied to all situations where, for whatever reason, it's part of the scope of work, there would be a need to hire post-certified officers for whatever reason to provide security for any contracted services, not just traffic plans. And so this paper would apply the requirement that there be original jurisdiction to all situations where contractors, due to scope of work, are supposed to provide some sort of post-certified security. I would note that, it is that you have to have original jurisdiction. So insofar as it's not just, you don't have to be from the city of Atlanta particularly, you just have to have original jurisdiction location of the contract services. So if the contract services are outside of our jurisdiction, the contractor would be obliged here to hire post-certified officers, have an original jurisdiction in that location, even if it's not the city of Atlanta.
always said much more eloquently than I. Thank you, Ms. Robinson.
The only question I have is, I agree with the policy. Will this create undue pressure? I realize it's off-duty, but I just want to make sure capacity-wise we're not creating a requirement that's going to stress our public safety capacity.
So, of course, I can't speak to the personnel availability of APD. However, this is not restricted. Persons would not be restricted to utilizing APD officers. Of course, they could, but if there were an issues that APD officers are not available due to whatever issues, city needs, or just the lack of availability of officers, it's off duty, and so it's their choice to do this. Contractors would be able to hire personnel such as Fulton County sheriffs. They have original jurisdiction here, state patrol officers, just as long as they're post-certified and they have original jurisdiction at the location of the contract.
Well, let me piggyback on that just for clarity's sake. So a contractor's not required to hire a former city cop or off-duty city cop. However, he is required to have that pool be his first stop, correct?
I'm sorry, to have the pool, what was that again?
Well, I get the intent here, and for the reasons that both of you have stated. I'm just wondering procedurally and realistically, if I'm a contractor, so I'm reading this and I'm thinking, okay, well, apparently this doesn't mean I have to hire an Atlanta cop, but what does it require me to do in terms of who do I go to ask first, and at what point do I then feel myself free to expand, the pool of people I'm looking for to do the job?
Understood. I think the first step is, it lies with the user agency. because the first step is whether or not the user agency determines as part of the scope of work that they would even need to hire post-certified officers at all, right? So if it's in the scope of work, like you're going to need to hire some kind of post-certified law enforcement as security here, and that's what you need to comply with the contract, the specifications, then once that happens, I mean, the contractor is free to go out on the market, so to speak, to determine, you know, what sort of company or group of officers they would like to contract with to provide those services. There are many companies and individual officers who put themselves out there for that, and that includes Fulton County Sheriffs and other jurisdictions.
While the legislation doesn't necessarily prioritize and sequence the pool necessarily, what it says is that, quite frankly, if it's within the city of Atlanta, they can only contract with someone, individual, or an agency that has either City of Atlanta, Fulton County, or Georgia State Patrol, and that's it.
Well, that's not exactly going to be it, because state law does provide original jurisdiction to certain other agencies in certain geographic areas within the city. So Atlanta Public Schools is a large one. They have their own police department, and they, within certain geographical areas from a school, have original jurisdiction. The universities also, but of course it's up to the leadership of those agencies as to whether or not they allow their officers to work extra jobs. But this legislation would not prohibit the hiring of persons like that if the geographical areas were where the contract is being performed.
Now, this is helpful. I think my concern on maybe this is Shook's as well. We don't want to limit it so far that it creates inflexibility, but it sounds like there's plenty of resource out there based on original jurisdiction. So, okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Hillis and Overstreet.
Let's open the vote.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
Do we have any other business, Ms. Kempson, right? Are you sure? All right, there's a motion to adjourn. When this committee adjourns, it adjourns. We are adjourned.